For most of my life, I believed sacrifice was what made a family strong. I believed if I worked harder, stayed quieter, and asked for less, eventually my parents would notice me the way they noticed my younger sister, Emily. She was sunshine in their eyes. I was responsibility. She got comfort. I got instructions. At 19, I worked 3 jobs while taking night classes and saving every possible dollar for college. I waited tables at a diner before sunrise, cleaned office buildings after dark, and spent weekends filing paperwork for a local insurance agency. Every tip, every paycheck, every exhausted breath went into one account, my future. That account became my hope. Then one morning, everything changed. I had just come home from a double shift when my mother called a family meeting. Those words always meant someone else had already made the decision, and I was simply there to absorb it. Emily sat curled on the couch in expensive leggings, mascara smudged just enough to look tragic. She talked softly about needing space to heal. She wanted to travel through Europe for a few months. Paris, maybe Spain. She said she needed to find herself. My mother rubbed her back like she was comforting a wounded child. Then, my father looked at me with tired eyes and said the sentence that split my life in half. "We're going to use your college fund for a while." I stared at him. Not borrow, not discuss, use. I reminded them I had built that account myself. 3 jobs, years of sacrifice. Emily looked annoyed more than guilty. "Rachel," my mother sighed, "she's your sister. Sometimes family helps family." Then my father added quietly, "It's not like you were going to college this year anyway." That hurt more than the money, because it told me they had already decided my dreams were optional. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I walked into the kitchen, opened the family binder where all our financial information was kept, and calmly changed every password connected to my personal savings and accounts. Then I left a sticky note on the table. "Use your own money next time." And I walked out. That night, I sat alone in a 24-hour diner with a cup of coffee going cold in my hands. I remember watching strangers laugh together while my entire future felt stolen. But somewhere between exhaustion and heartbreak, something inside me woke up. For the first time in my life, I stopped asking why they didn't value me. Instead, I started asking why I kept accepting it. A few days later, I returned home quietly while everyone was out. I went into my father's office looking for tax records tied to my college account. That's when I found the envelope. Inside were financial statements, hidden transfers, luxury expenses, and private accounts my parents claimed didn't exist. They weren't struggling financially at all. They simply didn't want to spend their money on me. But they were perfectly comfortable spending mine. I photographed every page. I didn't fully know what I planned to do yet. I only knew I was done being invisible. Over the next several months, my life became survival mixed with reinvention. I rented a tiny apartment with peeling wallpaper and worked freelance admin jobs during the day while studying financial systems and business law online at night. I learned how money moves, how people hide assets, how manipulation can wear the face of family support. Most importantly, I learned something no one had ever taught me before. Boundaries are not cruelty. They are self-respect. While Emily posted filtered photos from Europe with captions about healing energy, I quietly rebuilt my life from the ground up. Then the investigations started. My father's accounting firm received compliance questions. Their tax filings triggered reviews. Educational grants connected to Emily's overseas study program came under scrutiny. I never acted out of revenge. I acted out of truth, and truth has gravity. Slowly, the perfect image my family spent years protecting began to crack. My father lost clients. My mother's charity board distanced itself. Emily's glamorous online life suddenly looked less inspiring when people realized it had been funded with money taken from her sister's future. For the first time ever, I stopped feeling guilty for protecting myself, and strangely, the more their world unraveled, the calmer I became, because I realized something important. I didn't actually want them destroyed. I just wanted freedom. One evening, months after I left home, my parents showed up at my apartment unannounced. My mother looked exhausted. My father looked older than I remembered. They slid a handwritten note under my door asking to talk things through. But even then, they still framed everything like a misunderstanding instead of a choice. Not once did they truly say, "We were wrong." I didn't open the door. Instead, I wrote one sentence and slid it back. There's nothing left to fix if honesty never existed to begin with. They left quietly. That should have felt victorious. Instead, it felt final. Around that time, I began volunteering at a community financial literacy program for first-generation college students. Most of the girls reminded me of myself, overworked, underestimated, desperate for someone to believe in them. I taught them budgeting, scholarships, credit systems, and how to protect themselves financially. But more than anything, I taught them this: never let guilt convince you that your future belongs to someone else. One student stayed after class one day and asked me softly, "Did your family ever apologize?" I smiled before answering, "No," but eventually I stopped needing them to. That was the moment I realized healing had finally begun. A year later, I heard through relatives that my parents had lost their house. Emily had disappeared from social media. My father's business reputation never fully recovered. One afternoon, a letter arrived in my mailbox. It was from my dad. He wrote about losing everything, about regret, about how he wished things had turned out differently. But even then, the letter still avoided the one thing that mattered most: accountability. There was no real apology, just sadness that the consequences finally arrived. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in a drawer, not because I hated him, because I no longer needed his approval to move forward. That night, I stood by the window of my small apartment, watching city lights flicker across the skyline. The place wasn't fancy. The floors creaked. The heater barely worked. But every inch of it belonged to me. Paid for, honestly. Built patiently. Protected fiercely. And for the first time in my life, peace felt possible. People often think stories like mine are about revenge. They aren't. They're about awakening, about realizing your worth cannot survive in places determined to shrink you. My family thought taking my college fund would break me. Instead, it forced me to become someone stronger than the version of myself who kept begging for love from people unwilling to give it. I still believe in family, just not the kind that demands sacrifice without respect. Today, I teach young women how to build financial independence. I help students apply for scholarships. I speak openly about emotional manipulation, favoritism, and reclaiming your future. And every now and then, I think about that girl sitting alone in the diner with tired eyes and cold coffee. She thought she had lost everything. But really, that was the night she finally found herself. If this story resonates with you, remember this: your dreams are not selfish. Your future is not negotiable. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from the people who taught you to live small. Because healing doesn't always arrive with forgiveness. Sometimes it arrives with freedom.